I felt like once I got past $10 million that I had reached the mountaintop and that I was never like now I can coast and take it easy. And that was a huge mistake that I had made because my company suffered for that for about a year, maybe a year and a half.
Today, I'm joined by Jason, founder and owner of Aastro Roofing. Jason built his company from the ground up, starting with no money and a single beat-up pickup truck, and in just 10 years has grown Aastro Roofing into a $15 million business with hundreds of people working across his projects. In this episode, we're talking about what it really takes to scale crews and operations at that level, how marketing has completely changed with AI and search platforms, and what contractors need to understand if they want to stay competitive over the next few years. Thanks, Jason, for being on the show.
Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
Jason, can you start by telling our listeners how Astra Roofing got started?
Well, I started Astro Roofing really out of frustration. I was working in the industry under poor management, not getting paid my commissions, watching my customers kind of get burned. And I realized really quickly I could either just continue to complain about it or I could decide to do the hard thing, the thing that I was trying to avoid really, and start my own business and really like just trying to change my mindset, really just going out and having a very clear philosophy to build it right, do it right, and try to be the best in the industry.
Awesome. That's great. That's sometimes how the best things happen is you're just motivated because you got a vision. So, and you said you started with no money and one beat up pickup truck when we were talking before. So what were those first couple of years really like?
The first couple of years, man, they're definitely the toughest. You hear people talk about the journey and the climb. It's definitely the most dynamic. I want to say the most dynamic, but I think it's the most that you're kind of like fumbling around trying to figure out what's going on. But it was really pure survival mode, to be honest with you. I did everything myself. I was basically the sales guy, the production manager. I would actually even go out and perform the work sometimes until I was able to build my team. But every mistake that I made hurt because there was no room for mistakes. There was no room to absorb those errors, and that forces discipline on you very quickly, and you either learn very fast or you don't eat. So looking back, I think that period shaped how, discipline is instilled into our company even today.
That's a um, great way to really just look back and take the good out of it and to keep everybody disciplined. That's great. So what do you think was the biggest turning point that helped you go from survival mode to real growth?
Survival mode to real growth. Well, the first few years, I'm just basically paying bills. I mean, I'm not really making any money. Which I'm not making money, but every penny I'm making, I'm reinvesting into the company. So, and again, up to the first 5 million, I'm kind of like doing it all myself. It's, when I stopped relying on myself to do everything and I started building my team and training and understanding how to be a real leader, that's kind of when my business stopped depending on me personally and started to become scalable, I guess.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense. You're able to pass things on because you can only do so much on your own. So today you're doing around 15 million a year and running multiple crews. Um, what's changed most about your role as the company's grown, other than not doing it all anymore?
Well, yeah, I mean, I basically, like I said, I went from, wearing every hat to trying to be a better leader, a better. So again, I grew up in the industry. I'm a third generation roofer. I got like the fourth generation in there now. I say the fifth generation because my niece has a 2-year-old son that runs around the office every day. He's not in daycare. Basically, we built a nursery in the office for him to run around there. But it's indicative of kind of, I have two young, well, I wouldn't call them young boys. I got two teenage boys, 16 and 13. And, I've instilled in them, the industry, even though they're probably not, one might be in the industry. I don't know. One wants to do something else. But again, you never know where you're going to land. I never really wanted to be a roofer, but, I think turning from being like a roofer's manager, kind of like a manager type project manager, whatever it is, moving from that to training managers, training leaders, training salespeople, that's been like the biggest change for me, is like moving from a doer to a teacher and a mentor.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. Now you've changed to thinking about the legacy and how this might affect your children taking it over and your niece or your nephew there. And yeah, just that's really neat. But I like how you talk more about being the leader and instead of just kind of manager. I think that's pretty distinct.
Yeah, it's that again, it's a difficult transition. I've always been a coach. I coached like little league and been heavily involved in like youth sports stuff like that my whole life, even before my kids, really. Because I got a nephew too, and even before that, like right out of high school, one of the roofing companies that I worked for in Michigan, the owner of that company, was a baseball coach, and he coached a local high school. So like I helped him coach, and that just like coaching's kind of been like a side thing that I've done for a long time. And it's really transcended into running this company because coaching kids in youth sports and mentoring kids on how to be better, grow into like productive adults is a very similar process to managing a team, in business, so it's definitely helped me.
Yeah, you got to keep motivation, keep structure, keep the company vision, all of that. Definitely different focus. So, can you paint a picture of what your team's structure looks like today? You've got in house crews, subcontractors, managers, and sales. Kind of what's that layout, I guess, look like?
Well, it's definitely a complex hierarchy because I mean, look, I mean, I'm still heavily involved in every division, right? I mean, I don't do the marketing, but I'm heavily involved in the marketing. I don't really do the sales, but I'm heavily involved in the sales, the production, same thing, So even though I have my division heads out there, I mean, I still get on jobs. I still jump in with the crews. I still train guys out in the field. I still, I mean, we have training implementation every week. And part of our process is in our weekly staff meetings, our staff brings back the next week something to improve the company, something they can bring to the table to help improve the team and make our team better as a whole. So one thing that I say that sets us apart from our competitors, and it's not just in roofing, but most companies get this wrong, is they are under supervised or under trained. When you concentrate on like just trying to be cheap, I mean, I always say this to my sales guys, look, the easiest way to try to build value is to just be cheap, right? But if that's the only way you're creating value in what you're trying to sell, then all somebody has to do to create more value than you is just be cheaper by a dollar. So it's not a great strategy to just try to be cheap. I mean, look, we all want to give our customers the best deal that we can give them, but if you are not differentiating yourself with your process or your product or whatever it is that you're trying to offer, the outcome at the end of the process that you're trying to present to your client, that's a recipe for disaster, and you're doomed in whatever industry you're in. So not everybody can be Walmart, right? And even Walmart struggles because then along comes Amazon, right? So it's like
Yeah,
you
true.
have to find a way to differentiate yourself in your marketing, create value, because if you're just trying to be cheap, it's not going to help. So from the beginning, when I started Astro Roofing, I just wanted to build the best team. And one thing I learned along my career was, having proper management, having proper supervision, and having proper training. When your field goes correctly, especially in roofing or in the service industry, when your field is running right, it kind of lets the office fall in line so much easier. When the field is all messed up, it don't matter how tight that office is. That office can be tight, know all the numbers, put in all these processes and stuff. But if you ain't got guys out in the field that can put out the product that you're looking to present, then you're going to have a lot of problems.
Right. Yeah. The end product is what everyone's going to see and
The
how
end
that will.
game's going to suck for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Like, I like that you touched on that, that you're still very involved in the company, even though you've got all these people. You don't just like walk away and say, okay, it's running by itself. You're still being the leader, still involved, still making sure everyone things are working well and keeping that face to the company. So yeah, that's very cool.
I think that's a lesson I learned from like what did they call that show where the boss, it's undercover boss or something like that, right? It's like when you, and I've caught myself in the same things, I am a constantly evolving process, and my team and my company is the same. So I am constantly challenging myself, and this is like I'm writing a book, I'm not sure what it's called. I think I'm going to call it like the millionaire mindset. I'm not quite sure on the title yet. It's almost finished, but it really
So
talks about like having the right mindset. So, when you challenge yourself to be the very best version of yourself, it's what, creates that high level of success, and if you're not really challenging you and your team for change and growth, then I'm not sure what you can expect.
Yeah. And you mentioned before that you have that theme of discipline that you kept from when you were really needed that, but you still hold on to that. So, I mean,
Yeah,
that's,
if you
yeah,
don't have your pulse on if you don't have your pulse on your company, you're not going to be able to dig into those positions and those expectations you set for your team and understand if they're reasonable. So again, I've caught myself doing this in the past where I set unreasonable expectations for my team and I don't realize it until I kind of start digging into the process myself and trying to replicate it. So as managers, we kind of often do this is and this is I see this a lot in management is we try to there's a lot that managers can do wrong, but we try to fit our employees or our subordinates into a box and we kind of put ourselves on high and we just say, hey, do better. Or, I need you to do what I tell you to do. I've done explain this 100 times, but if we don't accept accountability as the leader of that individual, then we can accept that same responsibility for the failure that our team is facing. Now, of course, you're going to have people that are inept, but if you have not done everything in your control to try to stand side by side with that individual and like be like, look, I got your back, dude. Look, I know you're struggling. And I just had this conversation the other day with one of my team members. If I come to you and I say, hey, look, John, your performance sucks and you really need to do better at your job. I mean, we're having these meetings every week. I'm not sure what you don't understand, but you better figure it out, right? You're not going to like that manager too much, and you're
so
probably not going to produce that well, right? But if I come to you, I go, look, John, I see you're having problems and I see that you're struggling. Your performance is down. So, what I would like for you to do is, I want you to come each meeting. I want you to come bring some type of issue or problem that you're having that you can't overcome. I want you to bring to me like some of the advancements that you're kind of making progress with. And I also want you to bring me some problems that I can help you with. Look, I'm on your team, dude. I really want you to be successful because your success is my success. If you're going to fail, then it's going to reflect badly on me. So I want to do whatever I can to make you better at your job. Now, which guy are you going to want to work for in that position, right? I mean, it's like that's a no brainer.
exactly.
And we see
Yeah.
managers do this all the time. So again, for me, I think that's part of why I'm successful. I've learned how to, I haven't always been that guy, but I've learned, I think, how to be a good manager and how to teach managers how to be good managers.
Okay. That really explains a lot about kind of your, like, just the approach of how to get the most out of people. You just work with them, talk to them like you want to problem solve together. You're not trying to just be better than them. So yeah, that's a really, it explains a lot about, yeah, why people would want to work for you and the good culture. So with that in mind, like, have you had times when you still are working with them and trying to figure out what's going wrong, but you've had to make that difficult decision of just they're not cutting it? What's an example or like a time you can think of when it's just so you
Well,
had
I
to make,
mean, there's been a million. I mean, look,
probably many
I've
times.
kind of been the boss since I was a kid. My first job in roofing was to be a boss, even though I didn't know much. My family was roofers. I had a name in roofing, but I was not a roofer. Like my first job, I tried not to be a roofer really hard. I mean, roofing's not a job you aspire to get into, right? It's dirty and hard and difficult and all those things. So even though I did it like on the weekends with my dad and stuff and with my family, I knew a little bit about roofing, but I was basically like a laborer or a helper or apprentice. I wasn't really didn't have a lot of skills in the roofing industry when I got into roofing. I got into it kind of on happenstance because I had done a lot of other stuff. I'd been entrepreneurial, started my own business right out of high school, done all that I've always been like entrepreneurial in that sense. But at some point I got into roofing because I got an opportunity and the guy had known my family and he's like, look, come in and I'm going to make you a boss. And even though I didn't know roofing, I knew a lot of roofers. So I just hired roofers to be part of my team, and then they kind of went out and that's kind of how I learned how to roof was like from the top looking down. So it was like, I wouldn't say that I've never played lower positions in the industry. I mean, I have, but not at very long stenches. So I've been lucky in that respect. I've eaten the dirt, but I've always done it kind of like as a boss. So, firing people, I've done it at the worst times. I've literally had to let people go on Christmas Eve. It's not a good feeling. There's times in my life where I've been like, look, I want to be anybody but me. Either you can't make payroll or, you can't make the bills or, you got to lay off a bunch of people or look, this happens all the time in business, right? And it never feels good. I can tell you, those aren't the times that you want to experience. But being an entrepreneur isn't for the faint of heart either. Again, it's not who you hire, it's who you keep. I learned this from Tony Robbins, watching Tony Robbins going to like one of his events one time. It's one of the things I brought away from that is like, people that are the most successful are the ones that can make the hard decisions. So I never set out to be cruel, but it's like when I have to let somebody go, it's because the numbers in the company is making that choice for me. I mean, I don't typically make those hard decisions. Those are either made by the individual themselves, they've put themselves in a bad position, or the numbers for the company are telling me something and the company is making the decision. So I can't ignore those numbers. Those are matter of fact type deals. So it's not like I run my business without the emotion or empathy for people because that nothing could be farthest from the truth.
Sounds like you do.
Yeah, I mean, look, we consider what we do a family, and it's a privilege to be a part of our family because we watch out for each other. We have each other's backs, and once you come in, you typically don't leave. But there has been cases where I've had two. Well, I would say I've had three people that had worked for me for a long time through this process of going 10 years with Astro Roofing, where they've had to leave for one reason or another. I don't want to get into those reasons, but they were all difficult decisions to make. Some of them were close family members, some of them were close friends, but not everybody can go where you're trying to go. And not everybody can meet the expectations that need to be met to get to the mountaintops that you're trying to climb sometimes. And when you're constantly looking for growth, and looking for improvement, you have to have team members that have that same mindset. And if you have one person on that team that's kind of breaking down that mindset, it can act like a cancer. Again, the truest statement that I can make, or the best beneficial statement that I think I can make to any entrepreneur right now would be, find out who's actually on your team and make it very difficult for them to go and find out the ones that aren't truly on your team and replace them.
That's a great piece of advice. Just if someone's not performing or bought in, then it can affect everybody else. So that can maybe make it a bit of an easier choice to have, even though it's hard to think about the one person, but then you're thinking about everybody else. So um, it's a good way to kind of come into it, I think, to put your mind and feel okay about having made that decision.
Yeah.
And I want to jump into marketing a little bit because we talked about this before, and you were talking about how Google has really, I think you said as the mafia. What do you mean by that from a contractor's point of view?
Again, maybe I misphrased that quote. I know I've used that on another
I liked
podcast. I wouldn't say it as a mafia, but I would say it as a monopoly, right? And again, Google can be a great thing. I mean, we have to depend on Google because it's like the yellow pages of old, right? Back in the day, you used to have to be the yellow pages was like had the monopoly. So it's very difficult to ignore Google. But my point to that statement was, look, if you're going to do what everybody else is doing and try to stand out in a competitive market, good luck. I mean, it's not going to happen. When you're trying to stand in a crowd of 1,000 people and you all look and act and are doing the exact same thing, how are you going to differentiate yourself? It's typically not going to happen. So, what I think you need to do moving forward, especially with the advent of AI, is you need to be able to create citation for yourself. You need to create authority within your niche. You need to create expertise. You need to constantly seek out education, network, get out there, and and again, if you're not going to put yourself out there and allow yourself to potentially look foolish, right? Like me writing this book. Look, I deal with this, and I talk about this in the book too. It's like, we deal with like imposter syndrome all the time. Who am I to write a book? Who am I to start a $15 million company? Who am I to think that I'm actually somebody to sit on a podcast and tell somebody how to do something, right? People deal with this all the time. And that's why they don't accomplish their goals because they don't follow through because they don't have the vision. And it's not that they don't have the vision, it's they don't have the belief. Any type of success that you're going to experience in life other than like winning the lottery or something like that, or something that just kind of falls into your lap is going to start with the belief that it can happen. And again, this is part of the mindset that I talk about in this book. And I don't, I'm not trying to sell the book on this podcast. I hate to keep going back to the book, but I'm right in the middle of it right now. So, but that's part of it is, having the correct mindset, to be successful and having the belief, because if you don't have the belief, it's never going to happen.
Yeah, for sure. So
But
what?
the
Yeah.
Google thing, I mean, just like I said, I think it's not that they're a mafia, they're a monopoly. And
Yeah.
so you have to kind of try to find a way to subvert that monopoly to get your name out there
Yeah. And become an authority,
and
definitely.
become authority. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. So what does that really look like, I guess, for like advice maybe for other people looking into what marketing they should do? Like you're obviously doing things like being on a podcast, you're creating authority, writing a book, you're creating authority, figuring out how to stand out and be different from other people. Are you able to do that with like traditional marketing channels like Google ads or Facebook ads or putting out brochures, all of that? I guess what have you found has been kind of the most successful for you?
Well, again, I was just talking about this at an event that I was at. Like, if I wanted to close more deals or become more relevant, right? If I wanted to be more influential in my industry or my market, the first thing I would do is I would double down on everybody that I know. I would tell everybody, if that's past customers, clients that have fell through the cracks, my friends, my family, whatever. I would start reaching out to everybody. If I haven't done so, if they don't know what I'm doing, I would let them know what I'm doing. Hey, and then I would tell them my goals. Hey, look, I appreciate if you can help me get to this goal for help and recruit them to your cause, and be gracious in that, and be like, look, I'll share in the win. I'll give you like a percentage point or whatever it is if you help me get this job. I just did this with one of my clients the other day. I did a roof for a lady 25 years ago before I even started my company. She's a friend of my mom. I'm talking to my mom on the phone, and she's like, "Oh yeah, Vivi needs her two neighbors need roofs." And I tell my mom, like, "Well, tell Vivi if she gets those neighbors to call me and they buy a roof from me, I'll give her $500 for each neighbor that buys a roof off me." So then when I go to her neighbor, I tell the neighbor. The neighbor goes, "Yeah, I got you from Vivi." I go, "Oh yeah, I know you know Vivi," and we start talking about. I go, "Well, I told Vivi that I give her $500 if you buy this roof off me." People might go, I can't believe you would say that. But you know what? That gives the neighbor incentive to buy the roof off me. So these are strategies that you need to implement. Not only do you need to go through and find creative ways to look for opportunities that you wouldn't normally find them, or look for them, but that's kind of what you need to do is you need to get out there, double down on every single person you know. And then I would train myself how to have a great conversation with a customer, how to demonstrate and present whatever product or service that I'm trying to offer. If you're not a great closer, I talk about this all the time. If you're just an order taker, like at Astro Roofing, look, we're the greatest company in the world. I don't care how we'll put us against anybody. We have the reputation to prove that, not just great reviews, but very minimal bad stuff. I mean, like when you look at like the bad stuff about us, it's like non-existent. And this is my point is, good stuff can be manipulated. Bad stuff, no one's buying their own bad stuff, right? So, yeah, there can be some fake bad stuff on there, but my point is if you're going to rely on a company to sell for you or the platform you're working off of to sell for you and not offer like your own personal value, then um, you know, you're probably not going to be the greatest, at closing jobs or closing deals. And then the last thing that I would definitely 100% do is when I'm sitting down, I get an opportunity to actually talk to somebody and present my service or my product, is I would like make personal commitments to them. That's like one thing that I definitely do every time. I'm like, look, I promise you, not only look, I don't want to sound braggadocious, but thank God you've closed more deals. That doesn't cost any money whatsoever, right? So we can double down on Google, we can double down on lots of things, but I think those are like the most important things. And I think that's what people already fail to realize is you probably already have it in your wheelhouse. You don't really need to spend more money. You probably just need a better strategy at what you're already doing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the way you even presented your sale. Homeowners just want to feel like they want to feel like this is a good decision. They want you to help them feel comfortable that this is the right way to go. And if you're so confident in that, that's definitely going to just come through, I'm sure. So yeah, thanks for going into all of that. It's more about just the channel. It's really about how you're presenting your company. I want to end on more advice. So what surprised you most about running a $15 million company compared to a small roofing company? Let's say when you had people, you were 7 million, you had people versus now you've got 15 million. What's the biggest difference you're surprised?
I think the biggest surprise to me was that it's not a finish line. I felt like once I got past $10 million that I had reached the mountaintop and that I was never like, now I can coast and take it easy. And that was a huge mistake that I had made because my company suffered for that for about a year, maybe a year and a half. Can be difficult to understand for a lot of people because I've had a blessed life. I live an incredibly blessed life. I mean, I got the greatest family, the greatest kids. I mean, I'm financially well off. It's not about creating opportunity for me. It's about creating opportunity for my team. And the only way I can do that is through growth, and so I want the company to grow. Like we're starting to implement general contracting, things like that into our company. We're trying to open up other opportunities. And again, that's not for me to have more stuff. I mean, I could literally just coast and just try to stay even forever. But I know that's not a winnable strategy. So a winnable strategy is creating opportunity for your team so your team can share in your success, which I mean, we already do that. I got guys that make hundreds of thousands of dollars. They work for me. And I'm proud of that. I mean, that's something like I wear that as a badge of honor because before I worked for Aastro Roofing, for me to make over six figures was difficult. I did it. Don't get me wrong, but it was extremely difficult. And especially in the roofing industry, because people are so ready to kind of screw you over. As soon as they see an opportunity to take your money and just get rid of you, like it happens all the time. And that's, I think, a big part of the reason why I've been successful is because I've taken all those losses and all those knife stabs in the back by all those contractors that I had worked for in the past. And I had used them as a foundation to build something special here at Astro Roofing. So, I think when people can trust you and trust in your integrity and the way that you do business, it creates an incredibly prosperous situation for you and your team.
Yeah, that's awesome. And back to kind of the beginning of making this a legacy or building something more, being that leader, it's not just about what you can get. Yeah, that's really cool. It's
100%.
a really great place to end on. Jason, thank you so much for sharing your story and being so honest about what it really takes to grow and be a leader at a company that scale. It's been really valuable for our listeners. This episode is sponsored by RenderWorks Pro, the visualization and design platform built specifically for exterior contractors. It helps you show homeowners what their project will look like and win more jobs with confidence. Thanks again, Jason, for being on the show.
Thank you. Loved being here. It was awesome.
Great. And thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode.